We believe there's no such thing as a free lunch, and good things come to those who work hard. So a free gift is like, I'm not into free gifts. Like, Estee Lauder, you're lying to me. There's no such thing. I had to buy $49 worth of makeup for your free gift. Like, I'm not a sucker. Like, I know there's a catch. And so we minimize that grace and we say, grace is for people who can't hack it. I can hack it. I don't need that grace. Thank you, but no thank you.
Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Hi, friend. You are listening to episode number 102 of the Girls Talking Life podcast. If you are listening on the day this show releases, it is the very last day of October, and that means the holidays are almost here. And so is the Girls Talking Life Favorite 5 gift guide. This guide is a collection of my guests' favorites shared on the show that will make terrific gifts for your favorite people this season. Gift ideas are broken down into categories, linked to where you can find them online, and linked to the episode where they were shared. If you get the GTL newsletter, this gift guide will arrive in your inbox soon. If you're not a subscriber, find the link in the show notes to sign up so you get the guide too. I am so excited to introduce you to my new friend, Jill E. McCormick. On the show today, she shares her story of believing her value was found in what she could do, what she could achieve, trying harder, doing more, until she was introduced to the concept of grace. You'll hear us talk about what grace is and how we can practically apply it every day in our lives, why grace may be hard for us to receive, and the impact grace can have on our relationships. Jill is the host of the Grace in Real Life podcast and the writer behind JillEMcCormick.com, spaces where she shares common sense grace with the try-hard girl who wants her faith to intersect with her real and full life. Jill is so fun and honest and relatable, and she speaks right to my heart, and I think she will to yours too. Everything we talk about, including how to connect with her, can be found on girlstalkinglife.com. Here is our conversation. Hello, Jill McCormick. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on Girls Talking Life.
Oh, Johanna, I am so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You and I have met online and we have become friends. And I am so glad to be talking face to face with you today about all the stuff.
Oh, me too. Me too. This is going to be good.
Tell me, see, you are from South Texas. Tell me what fall is like for you. You and I talked about this a little bit, and I would love for my listeners to know.
Yes. For any Texans listening, y'all know that fall is like a season we live through vicariously through people who have an actual fall, like in the Northwest or maybe Midwest or different states that it's not 90 and it rains and the trees change color. We live through you and through postcards and calendars because we have evergreens and oaks and they stay green and the grass is crunchy and it's 95. But it's fine. It's fine. We will take this over snow and ice, which we completely, y'all know, we don't know what to do in snow and ice, so we shut everything down. And I know other states who get snow laugh at us because we don't know what we're doing, but I will take some heat over trying to figure out how to drive in ice and sleet. Every state has its gifts and charms.
Aside from what it is like in your area, what else do we need to know about you?
I am a follower of Jesus, wife to Ryan, mom of 2 teenage girls, and the owner of one high-maintenance Vizsla puppy. And I have a podcast called Grace in Real Life because I struggle with grace and how I can live it out in everyday life.
Well, that is what we're going to be talking about today because so many of us have that problem. You are an Enneagram 3, the achiever. And one of the struggles that you talk about is wanting to do more and try harder. And I'm an Enneagram 9. And on the diagram of it, we actually connect. And I think it is in stress, I go to a 6, but in security, in safety, I go to a 3. So I know all about wanting to get it done, wanting to do more. Why not? Let's go. What is your story, Jill, about being a try-hard girl?
Oh, let me just say, I love try-hard girls. So a try-hard girl is a woman who wants to wholeheartedly pursue Christ. She wants to live and love well and to extend grace to herself and others. But she's like, how do I do that? And try-hard girls want their faith to intersect with their busy and full life, but they are like, how do I do this in real time? I don't know what this looks like on a Tuesday when my kids are in 12 different directions and I'm hormonal and my husband is out of town and I'm solo parenting. So try hard girls, I'm with you. I am one of you. I love you. And I hope every day that I grow in grace. And so I would say my try hard girl story started, like for many of us, as a kiddo who either implicitly or explicitly, I picked up messaging that my value was found in what I could do, what grades I made, what I could achieve. And my parents are super lovely, Christ-following people. So I don't think they ever told me, Jill, we only love you because of what you bring to our family. Like, right. That's not anything they ever said. And yet we pick up through church messaging or living in the world, seeing how it works. We pick up this messaging as kiddos. I went to Texas A&M University, and I think they only let in try-hard guys and girls, like many universities around the country, where it's just our focus is on achievement and leadership roles and scholarships you can earn and the GPA you can make and the job interviews and the internship opportunities. So I was stewing in this it was an amazing experience. And also, you're kind of in the crucible of try-hardness in college. And then I get out of college, and my job out of college was my dream job. I worked for the Houston Astros baseball club. I'd grown up in Houston, grew up in the Astrodome, watching Astros baseball. And so I adored getting to work for this team I'd followed since I was a little kid sitting next to my dad in the first deck of the Astrodome. And because professional sports employs very few women, it was made very clear by the executive team that, hey, you're a woman in professional sports in the front office. If you don't work out, we have 100 other people who can replace you. And so there's this pressure that was explicitly stated. If you don't work out, we can, plop somebody in real quick. You work a lot. And it was a very toxic workaholic environment at that time. I would go to work every day. I did special events for the baseball club, and I would go to work every day and my stomach hurt and my brain couldn't think any other thought outside of work and to-dos and deadlines and checklists. And I didn't have room or space for my emotions or the emotions of my family or my friends. It was all about work, which is a really difficult place to be. And so God, in his kindness, removed me from that experience by my husband's job transferring us to Fort Smith, Arkansas. So we went from a city of 4 million people and my dream job to a town of 80,000 people that could not even support a Gap. The Gap went out of business a couple months after we moved there, and there was not even a Starbucks. You did grocery shopping at Walmart, and I was like, where's my Whole Foods and my Trader Joe's? Like, what is happening here? Where did we move? And I would not have told you at that time that was God's grace or God's mercy. I would tell you, this is the worst thing ever. He has stripped everything away from me. He has stripped my dream job. He has stripped the status of working in professional sports. He has stripped us away from our church, our family, our friends. And here we are in the middle of nowhere. This does not feel good. And it was at that time, I threw myself a pity party for an entire year. 365 days of shaking my fist at God. I don't like this. Get me out of here. This is not for me. This is not good. I don't get it. I want out. And he was like, you know what? You're just going to keep you here because I love you. I love you. And this is where I have strategically placed you for such a time as this. And so during that season, he began to soften my heart and then just grow me in who he is. And then God moved us back to Texas. I had 2 babies in Arkansas, so we are a little family of 4. He moved us back to Texas, closer to family. But even as I had those babies, I struggled with losing the baby weight. And when I say struggled, it wasn't so much that I struggled with losing the weight. It was my struggle with being obsessive about losing the weight. Like I counted every calorie. It was completely unhealthy calorie restriction because I wanted to get back to my pre-baby weight, and every decision revolved around what I would eat and when I would eat. And I had these 2 beautiful babies that were lovely and precious, and I could not enjoy them because I was so focused on numbers and weigh-ins and scales and working out. And so that finally led me to my counselor's office, where I don't know what they do in counselor's offices, but anytime I go to my counselor, I don't know if they pipe it in the vents in the AC system, but I walk into her office, I sit on that couch, and I immediately start crying. And I'm like, it's like incoherent babbling. And I remember my counselor saying, it's okay. Like, it's okay to cry. Like, let it out. And I remember I looked at her and I said, tears do nothing. They are not productive. This does not help me. I don't know why I'm crying. She's like, all right, let's start there. So I had shoved down this capacity to understand emotions and appreciate that tears are the liquid lens through which I can see God's grace. And tears are what show me what is important to me. And so I think through having a dream job in a really not healthy environment to moving to a different state where I didn't know anyone and was stripped outside of my husband, Ryan, and just being stripped of everything familiar, to having babies who I felt like all of this is above my pay grade. I don't know how to be a mom. I didn't even know if I wanted to be a mom. But now here we are, and I don't know what I'm doing. And his leading me to a counselor's office introduced me to the concept of grace. And I think one of the biggest reveals throughout my journey of moving away from being a try-hard girl and moving toward being a grace girl is understanding how inaccurately I viewed God. And I viewed him as disappointed in me all the time. Like, if I didn't serve, if I didn't help, if I yelled at the girls, if I didn't say yes to being the PTA mom, whatever it was, I was disappointing in him, and that he was constantly waving his finger like, there she goes again. Like, I can't believe she's sinning again. She's messed up again. She's being selfish again. Like, I really botched it with that one. So I felt that he was either disappointed in me or that he was a perpetual taskmaster, that I was put on earth to build his kingdom. So if I wasn't doing or serving or moving the ball down the field or evangelizing or helping or volunteering, that I was failing, and that God needed my hands and my feet to build his kingdom. And he cared less about my heart and my hurts and my wounds, because he just needed me out on the field playing. And if I addressed wounds or if I took rest, then that meant I was on the bench and not contributing to the building of his kingdom. And so I'm thankful I'm thankful that he stripped me from everything familiar and he spoke truth. And some of it was hard to hear, but all of it was necessary and all of it has been good.
Wow, what a story. Where do you think that mindset shift happened? I mean, you said thankfully to your counselor, but how did that switch in your brain?
I think a lot of it was reading a lot of good books about grace. One that comes to mind, I think of it as my primer on grace, is Grace for the Good Girl by Emily P. Freeman. I think that was a book that introduced me to this is a God who finds lost sheep and he calls them by name, which means my name. Like he calls my name. And so I think that just knowing we have a Jesus who is so intimately aware of our personality type and our gifts and our talents and our temperament, and recognizing that he gave me gifts and he gave me talents and he gave me passions to pursue. And it's when I pursue those things, not only am I most like myself, but I most glorify who he is. And so when I began to see the God of the universe as the Father of my heart, and that I didn't have to put a try hard spin on every scripture I read. Like the Bible was not about me doing more things. I think we see often the Bible as marching orders versus, oh my goodness, sweet girl, here's how much I love you. I wrote all these words just for you. When I look at it more through that latter lens than the former lens, I think it's just a process of him peeling away the layers of the onion of my heart that I had built up as self-defense mechanisms to protect my heart from being hurt. Like, if I can perform for you, you'll think I'm awesome and you won't notice anything wrong. If I can please you and say yes to all the things, well, then you don't really get to know me, but you do get the benefit of how I've helped you. And so I think we do a lot of work that is unnecessary for the sake of protecting our hearts when Jesus guards our hearts all along.
Yeah. I can remember times when I would be home from work and my husband would go to work. And at the end of the day, I would say, listen, this is all that I did today, because I wanted him to know I was productive and worthy. You know, I know he was hardworking all day away at work, but it was important for me to list by minute the tasks that I had completed. So that's one example of my try hardness shining bright. But as you mentioned, the antidote for that, the thing that we can put on, is grace that God gives freely to us. How can you simplify, if there's a way to simplify, what that means? What is grace?
Yes. So let me backtrack really quickly, because you said I would list everything that I had achieved. I'm like, oh, sister, I totally got that. Yes. Yes. And amen. And I want us to also not besmirch, and I'm not saying you did this, I'm saying this has been the lens through which I have seen my productivity and bent toward doing, is I will shame that doer in me. I'm like, why are you so intent on doing? Why are you so intent on being productive? And I think it is only unhealthy to produce and do when we are doing it for our worth, when we are saying, I am of value because I did these things, or I am loved because I did these things. I firmly believe, and the Bible says, that God preordained good works for us to do. Like, our God is not passive, and he doesn't want us to be passive. And so I think for me, it has been, okay, so I don't have to do for my worth, but I also shouldn't shame myself for wanting to get things done, for being productive, because God has good works for us to do. And it's good, and it's right, and it's obedient to do those things.
Yes.
I think just when we tangle them up in how valuable we are, that's when my brain goes a little wonky. But in terms of grace, so grace is the loving kindness and favor of God that does not excuse or condone our sin, but nailed it to the cross so we bear it no more. And on my podcast, I use this working definition for grace. I say grace is the person of Jesus who understands our humanity and comes alongside us to work on our behalf. Because I think for so many years, I refused to accept that I was a human. Like, I really thought either I was superhuman or I was a productivity machine who never got sick, who never had emotions. I was like a copy machine. Like, I faithfully just produced those copies without fail all day. I could produce all day. And just recognizing God didn't create me to do all the time and to measure my worth. He understands that as a human, I'm going to sin. I'm going to have big emotions. I'm going to want to celebrate. I need rest. And all of that is good. And he is A-okay and not surprised by any of those things.
The Bible tells us that we don't have to be self-sufficient and that we are not loved or saved because of our works, like you just mentioned. So what are some practical things we can do to internalize that and to put on his grace?
One pre-step would be to recognize why we might have a hard time receiving grace. I think if any of your listeners resonate with any part of my story, we Heisman grace, like we push grace away. And I think some of the reasons we do that, one, it might be shame, or we have some sort of messy past, like we remember something that someone has done to us, or a way we have hurt someone else. And we say, because of my sin, because of my past, I'm not worthy of grace. Grace is for better people. Grace is for good girls. Grace is not for me. And so because of our shame or our sin, we disqualify ourselves. God has not disqualified us. We've disqualified ourselves from saying, oh, this is mine. This is for me. I think some of us who perhaps grew up in a more legalistic, moralistic background, we believe, or just American culture in general, we believe there's no such thing as a free lunch and good things come to those who work hard. So a free gift is like, I'm not into free gifts. Like, Estee Lauder, you're lying to me. There's no such thing. I had to buy $49 worth of makeup for your free gift. Like, I'm not a sucker. Like, I know there's a catch. And so we minimize that grace and we say, grace is for people who can't hack it. I can hack it. I don't need that grace. Thank you, but no thank you. And I think another reason we might push away grace is because for some reason, most of my reasons, when I really reflect on them, are illogical, make no sense, which is how I know they're from the enemy, because their confusion and their lack of clarity. But I will say, grace is for Johanna. Grace is for Amy. Grace is for Heather. Grace is not for me. Like, it's for everybody else. But for some reason that we may not even have language for, we just think that, but it's not for me. And our God is not a God of hyperbole. When he says in the Bible, I am for you. My grace is sufficient for you. I love you. He is talking about you. And he's talking about me. And there is nothing we can do to out-sin his grace. He will out-grace us every time. And for that, this try-hard girl is very thankful. So to answer your question, I do think, number one, we need to figure out why we push grace away. And then I would say there are 3 phrases that have really helped me. And Johanna, I repeat these like every day. And I will tell them to you and your listeners now. and they'll sound crisp and neat and organized and 1, 2, 3, but they were not learned in a neat, crisp way. They were learned under the backdrop of a very messy, ungracious life that Jesus slowly peeled those onion layers away. But these 3 phrases that have helped me: number 1, I am a rookie. Number 2, I am human. And number 3, God is trustworthy in all things. And I think for the I am the rookie statement that I'll tell myself, like when I get I just think I should be naturally perfect at doing everything. Like I just assume I should do a great job with excellence, even though I've never done this thing before. Like I have never parented 2 teenage girls before. And yet my brain is like, you should be crushing this. Like you should be knocking this out of the park. I do not, from Voxer messages, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I will beat myself up. Like, why didn't you know to anticipate this? Why aren't you keeping track of all these apps? Why aren't you listening to these 15 parenting of teen podcasts? What's wrong with you? Why can't you get it together? But when I can step back and say, I'm a rookie. I'm learning this, and God's grace meets me in my rookiness. He's not waiting for me to get to professional status to give me grace. Like he meets me where I am. So that statement is helpful. The other statement, I am human. Again, I like to think I'm a productivity machine that can produce, 42 hours of work in an, 18-hour day. And I get frustrated when I cannot do those things, like when the fridge breaks or a kid gets sick or the car won't start or my husband goes out of town and I'm doing his stuff and my stuff. And I think, why can't I do this better? What is my problem? Why am I falling apart? It's like, well, I'm a human. Oh, what else might I be doing right now? Like this is a lot for any one person to carry. So God's grace meets me in my humanity. And then when I remember God is trustworthy in all things, when I'm having those moments of like existential crisis, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm the worst at everything I'm doing. Everything I touch messes up or falls apart. I want it to be said of me at the end of my life. She relied on the faithfulness of her father. And I just want to be a woman who doesn't lean on her own understanding, but goes back to Jesus. And I have to do it hourly because that is how much I am in need of help.
Those are so good. Yes, I am not a professional parent. I'm not an expert parent. I am not an expert wife. I am learning as I go. I am a rookie. I love that. And then the second one, I am human. I need to take breaks. I need rest. I get sick. I have hormones. And then what was the last one?
God is trustworthy in all things.
God is trustworthy. He makes up where we lack. And we will lack because we're human. Back to number 2. I love those, Jill. So, so good. You talk a lot about faith intersecting with real life. And we talk here on Girls Talking Life about intentional relationships and community. So how has your focus on grace in your life changed your relationships?
I love this question so much, and I'm so glad you asked it. So I'm going to break it down into 3 areas. One is my relationship with God, one is my relationship with myself, and one is my relationship with other people. And so with God, I feel like he has given me the lens to see him as my holy father. He is both holy and perfect, and he is my dad, who I can boldly approach his throne of grace with confidence any day of the week, anytime. And so I no longer see him as a taskmaster. I see him as my everything. Like, if I am tired, I can say, Jesus, I am so tired right now. And he'll say, I know you are, sweet girl. I see it. I know. Yes. Go take a nap. And then I'll say, but I don't have time to take a nap, Jesus. And he's like, I'm in charge of time, so go take a nap. Or he'll say, hey, I'm going to give you strength because I know you don't have time to take a nap. So He can provide, and he meets us exactly where we are. So I think my relationship, my study of grace over the past 6 years has led me to a better understanding of his heart and his character. And then I would say for myself, I default to beating myself up. So it can be even something as silly as like, I'm trying to get out the door with the girls and I drop my water bottle on the floor and the lid pops off and it spills everywhere and people are wet and the floor is wet and the dog is licking up the water and people are slipping. And I will be like, ugh, why didn't you know to not carry 95 things? Why do you do this every day? And I will beat myself up. My little inner critic goes crazy. And when I can bring myself back to, you're a human. This happens to humans. This is part of being in the human race. Like you're exhibit A in being a human right now. It makes my blood pressure go down. Like, oh, yeah, this is what humans do. And I was just being a human. This is no big deal. People spill stuff all the time. This is not the worst thing that's going to happen to me today. So just recognizing my humanity has softened my heart and lowered the volume on my inner critic. And then in terms of relationships with other people, I think understanding grace has really helped me be more vulnerable with other people. Because when I was living the try hard life and I was very much an unhealthy Enneagram 3 who is, you know, Enneagram 3s, we like to put on a game face. Like we wear a mask of fake fine all the time. Like we're awesome. Nothing to see here. We are capable and confident and we can do 8 million things and not a hair is out of place. And aren't you impressed? That's the image we want you to buy into. And so before understanding grace, it was very much this, everything's great. How can I pray for you? I bet you need prayer. I bet you need a casserole. I bet you need help with this. I am good. I have no needs. I'm so good. Thank you for asking, but I am good. And so being able to be vulnerable with other people, say, you know what, I'm struggling with anger with my kids because my 14-year-old is Miss Sassy Pants and I'm about to lose my ever-loving mind because I'm not okay with this. And recognizing I can share that struggle and with safe people, not with everyone, not on the internet, but with my safe people. And I won't be judged or shamed or looked down upon by others because I struggle. And so I think really studying grace has allowed me to become softer. It's like a nail file, like smoothing down those rough edges. It's softened my edges and it has created a space for me to be vulnerable and to be okay with not being perfect or viewed perfectly by other people. I already knew I wasn't perfect, but letting other people in on that was really hard.
Those are really, really good. And I think that the more we extend grace to ourselves, then the easier it is to extend that to other people.
Yes. Well, that old adage of like, you can't give away what you haven't experienced for yourself is so true. And it applies to grace. Like we can't be grace givers only to others. We have to internalize it for ourselves, or it's a false sham grace.
Has knowing and understanding the Enneagram helped you in this way?
1,000%.
Yes.
I believe the Enneagram has given me language for what is rumbling around in my soul and helps me to understand my motivation. And it also helps me understand other people where I'm like, she's a 5. So of course she's investigating. Of course she's collecting data. Of course she loves research. Of course she said no to my coffee date. It's not personal, but her energy tank is low and she doesn't have the capacity for me right now. That's fine. My feelings aren't hurt because I know she had a coffee date earlier this week and she can only do one coffee date per week and she already had hers. So it's not about me. It's about my person honoring her own boundaries. And so just recognizing the gifts and the talents and what other people bring to the table has opened me up to friendships I don't know if I ever would have had I been stuck in this lens of, you must look like I look and do what I do and believe what I believe and view the world how I view the world. Like, I need other people around me. I think C.S. Lewis talked about friendship as faces on a diamond, that one friend will draw out one part of you and another friend will draw out another part of you. And so we end up seeing this whole sparkly diamond. And I think that is true for how we interact with other people, that we bring out the different shine in them just as they do in us. And we need all kinds of people in our circle.
That is so true. And I had not heard that diamond metaphor before. Okay, Jill, to wrap things up here, I would love to ask for your favorite 5. What are 5 things you are doing or drinking or watching right now that are your favorites?
So I love this list. I love like top 5 lists. So the Pause app by John Eldredge, I do it every morning. It will knock your socks off. It's a little white square with black lines that look like a pause button. He prays over you. I mean, if John Eldredge wants to pray over me, I will take that any day of the week. So I love that. Another thing that is one of my favorites right now is my older daughter and I volunteer at our local dog shelter, and just getting to be outside, getting to be with dogs, and mostly getting to be with her, hugely helpful. So if you have a dog shelter in your neck of the woods, you should totally check that out. I also started this year something I swore I would never do, and that is start a gratitude list, because I just thought that is so cliche and basic, and I do not want to do that, and that sounds stupid. So I don't call it a gratitude list. I call it what made my heart happy today list, because I felt like if I called it my gratitude list, I would end up with the same things. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm thankful for my girls. I'm thankful for our house. I'm thankful for electricity. And I was like, I don't want to recycle those things. So these are specific things that made my heart happy today. So tonight, Johanna, when I go to bed, what made my heart happy today was this conversation with you. So that is going on my list.
I love that.
Another thing is, number 4 is the concordance on my phone. I love, it's called the KJV Strong's app. And so it lets me pull up a Bible verse, click on a word, and it shows me the Greek or the Hebrew and then the definition. And I love that because I'm a word nerd and I adore it.
That sounds so helpful.
It is so good. And number 5, I am reading a book by Timothy Keller called The Prodigal Prophet about Jonah. But I would say any book by Timothy Keller, you can't go wrong.
Those are fantastic. So helpful. I love your 5. Jill, any last words for the try-hard girl in all of us?
I would say to give yourself permission to not try hard to receive grace. Like, you don't have to work for the grace that God, right at this very moment, whether you are sitting in the carpool line, whether you're on a run with your dog, whether you're in the grocery store, like, God is always showering and lavishing you with grace. And so I think just to allow yourself to get in a heart space or a mindset that allows you to receive that He is with you, that He is for you, that He knows your heart, that He knows your struggles, that He knows what your dreams are. And He didn't give you any of those things to tease you or to make you work hard to pursue that dream or work hard to get out of that struggle. He is with you in it, and He adores you. And He's so happy He made you.
Thank you. It has been wonderful talking with you. I love that you had that moment where you felt the need to make a change and that God peeled the layers of the onion away, and that you're sharing it with us now, and that you so eloquently tell us how we can apply that in our own lives, because we really need to do that. I feel like I have some tools now to be able to do that. And I think I'll think differently about it the next time I'm in one of those situations you mentioned, when the water is spilling or the kids are yelling or any number of things, when the car cuts me off.
Oh, yes. And it always happens in the carpool pickup line. Like, I do not know what is going on with other drivers.
You're going to see those parents the next day, right?
I know, right? Why is it Fast and Furious, Mad Max Road Fury over there? What is happening?
Yeah, so let the grace shower over you first.
Yes.
And then extend it to your fellow drivers.
Yes.
Your fellow family members, your friends.
Yes. Yes, and amen.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you feel like you have a fresh perspective on grace and some practical tools to combat the do more, try harder mentality of our world. I love how Jill clarified that our good works, our wanting to be productive, isn't a bad thing. It just becomes a problem when we confuse our working for God's glory with our working for our own worth and value. You heard Jill and I talk a little bit about the Enneagram. If you would like to know more, Jill has a quick start guide that dives into how God wired you so you can live in the grace that He lavishes on you. Find the link for the ebook in the show notes, along with all the ways you can connect with Jill. Friend, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your story and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.